In this demo, we're going to talk about the work log and workflow. And what I mean by that is how the ticket comes in and you do this, then this, then this, then this, then this. You're allowed with RepairTRAX to customize the individual work log entries and even define the titles according to the actions taken. So let's take a look. This demo assumes you're the administrator, and hence the admin button is available, so let's click that and go to the admin center. Once in the admin center, I want to go to the settings tab, so let's click that. The default view is the store settings tab, and I actually want to talk about remote vendors real quickly. Remote vendors means that, for example, if you do watch repairs and somebody from outside your store actually does the repair and you ship it to them and then they quote it and then they ship it back to you. That's called a remote vendor. And so if I scroll down here, hold on a second, you can see the remote vendor is enabled for this particular demo. You can turn that off if you want to. Now I'm going to scroll back up to the top. Okay, now let's jump to the Work Log Management tab, which allows you to define which work log entries you want to define for your store and the order in which they appear in all the selection boxes. So let's click Work Log Management. At the time of this demo, there were 26 work log entries that you can pick and choose from and or define. If you want to, at any given time, get back to the initial default all 26 on, then you can click the click here to reset work log area, and it'll put everything back in order. There are two work log items that must remain. They are reason for service, or why is this thing being repaired, and closed, ready for payment. So that's basically the come in and the go out. Those two are fixed, and what I'm going to do now is scroll down so you can see the remaining messages. Notice that shipped to vendor, received by vendor, quote completed, quote accepted, quote rejected, etc. I'll show you more, are remote vendor specific. If you turn off remote vendors in your store settings, then these messages won't be presented. Here is the remaining list. Notice that closed, ready for payment is fixed and cannot be removed. There's a couple more remote vendor messages up at the top, and if you look at the very bottom, there's a inactive and not used work log entries, and right now, since I'm at the default, there are absolutely no non-used work entries. Now let's make some edits. For demo purposes, let's say my store does not have any QC. So what I can do is I can go over to the waiting for QC and QC in progress and say I'm not going to use these. Same thing with bench testing. Let's say I don't use bench testing. So let's see how I do that. To further enhance this, let's say I want to modify the parts ordered work log entry to say something a little more custom for me. So let's change that. Notice the ellipses at the end. That's just to make sure that we see something custom. Now I've scrolled up a bit and want to do a couple more modifications. First, I want to get rid of researching. I don't really research, I just diagnose and dive in this particular example. So I'm going to turn off researching. And I want any alerts to be one of the first things that appears in the drop-down so it's easy to find, and I want to change the way it's presented, so I'll make that modification here. That does it for changes, so now I'm going to submit to save. Notice that when I made alert modification to be item number 2, it also bumps diagnosing down, which is item number 2. At this time you can leave it alone, in which case it'll still display correctly because it'll first display the 1 and then the 2s and then the 3s, one or many. But for cleanliness, I think I'll change that diagnosing to a 3. Scroll down and save my changes. Okay, nice and clean. So now let's see how this appears in the certain drop-downs. The first thing I'll do is go over to the Messages Center, right, since we're already in the admin area. There's another standalone demo that's all about the messaging and the automatic messages that can be sent, so I'm not going to cover that here, but What I do want to show you is the order and our custom appearance of our work log entries, also known as the message triggers. Notice that when I pull down the message trigger, which is really a work log entry, that alert is the second one displayed as expected, because test message to customer always shows up default and you can't do nothing about that. And that parts on order has the ellipses following it, and that other work log items that I removed do not show up. Now let's take a look at the in-store messages tab. Notice here that since it's in-store and I have remote vendors on, that my remote vendor messaging is available to me to define. But also note that the order and the work log items are presented, and the ones that are not used are not presented. Now let's look at work log entries on a ticket. So I first have to go back to the main menu. Back at the main menu, so I'll click the Tickets button. And then select View Ticket. This ticket already has a couple of work log entries, but now it says it needs parts ordered, so I'm going to go ahead and order the parts. So let's see how that looks. Notice that the order is as expected, and the parts on order has the ellipses that I custom entered. I couldn't get the supplier on the phone, so I sent an email and I'm waiting for their response. Save my changes. There we go. Parts on order with our custom message shows up, along with the description. And then let's pretend later down the pike I get an email back saying we're out of stock. So what am I going to do? I'm going to post an alert. The alert is right there as expected in item number 2. Save my changes. There's our alert entered into the ticket, and if we had messaging set up to send a text and or email based on an alert, the customer would be automatically notified. Let's see what an alert looks like on the open tickets. And since we're in alert mode, there's a tiny little alert icon. Isn't that cool? That's it for this one. Have a good day.